It is Let's Talk Arts and Entertainment on WMAY 92.7, Springfield's News and Talk. And lots of theater of all forms coming back into town. There are so many shows that are performing already. Some coming up this weekend, next week. All the summer shows are getting there, getting up and running. And there's another show that you can see that is from a somewhat recent group, but they have made their name known, made a lot of wonderful, funny shows. And that's Capital City Improv. Talk about it with me is Eric Flick. How you doing, Eric?
Kevin, I'm doing really well. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. It's weather's nice. I mean, it's gonna be really hot, but it's nice outside.
Indeed,
Better than
indeed.
rain, I
Yeah.
guess. So you've been with Capital City Improv for a bit, yes?
Yeah, that's correct. I always forget the date, but it's been going on 4 years that I've been with Capital City Improv. And, recently, I guess in the last couple of years, Capital City Improv's founders have left Springfield. They went on to do
Hmm.
some more arts training. And so myself and Hope Cherry have kind of picked up the ball and kept Capital City Improv running.
Very good. And it's and you guys have any combination you guys put on some great shows in the past couple of years, and you're welcome. And it's great because for a long time there was one or two local improv troops that sort of came in and out of existence, I guess. That I tried out for one a long time ago. And I don't know how they must have stopped around the like early 20 teens maybe.
Sure.
And with all the theater in town, there really wasn't like a dedicated, improv group that I can think of off the top of my head, at least that didn't have, a local, connection with the theater scene. And so it's so cool that you guys are doing this and putting on shows. I think a lot of people have seen improv shows. It's something, there's so much theater I love doing that I consider myself good at. I don't think I've never considered myself very good at improv comedy. And it's always such a joy to watch, and it's so funny. But there's a lot that goes into doing improv. It's not just going up there and ha ha here. I mean, because if you don't prepare for it, I mean, it takes practice like anything else, and that's
Absolutely.
something that you guys have before we jump into, I guess, doing what you're going to be doing in this next show coming up. Always something I like talking about as many times as I talk to people improv. Uh, I mean, how is rehearsing for improv? Because it's sort of like I said, seems to some people might be sort of this almost oxymoron of like, well, it's all improvised, but really, I mean, there's a lot of structure that goes into an improv show.
Yeah. And so what we focus on are a couple of things. And number one is sort of technique, I would call it. And it's real similar to a lot of other acting techniques, except that you don't have pre-written lines that you can rely on. So uh, we focus on how do you get things started. Once they are started, how do you keep them going? How do you make your scene partner look good? How do you avoid pitfalls? Because there are ways that you can grind a scene to a halt if you're not careful. So we work on that frequently just to keep our skills sharp. We often talk about it's like flexing a muscle. You've probably been in shows and then taken time off, and then you get back into shows, and it sometimes you feel rusty. The same with improv, and it may be even more difficult because you're making things up off the top of your head. So we really like to keep those skills sharp so that we can put on shows in pretty short notice.
And that is so important because I definitely felt that with especially the last couple of years. There was a stretch of about a year and a half, and longer for a lot of people, where I didn't do any public singing, any public performing. I mean, I was on the radio, but that's very much as I like it. It is my job, so
Sure.
I hear
And a
myself
different
every
skill
day,
set too,
and a
correct?
different skill set. It's not as animated. I mean, you don't want to be completely monotone, but it isn't like you're playing a character. I mean, it's but there's all sorts of that stuff. But then when I went to my first audition where I had to sing and I hadn't like memorized a song for an audition in a long time, and I'm like, Psh, whatever, I can do this. And I ended up using, holding my music at the audition, and I told them, I was like, look, I couldn't get this memorized, and I tried a long time to do it. So, and I hadn't sung in front of it. I was like, I was like shaking while I was holding the music. I'm like, this is yeah. So it really is
Yeah.
getting back into that, and that is with all types of performing. And I think that is important. That it is good to keep up on these things to keep yourself sharp.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that we focus on is keeping those skills sharp. And then the other things that we focus on are sort of learning new skills or developing new forms of improv that people may not have seen, especially here in Springfield. We're only a couple hours outside of Chicago, which is really considered the mecca of improv. All of the best improvisers have come out of there. Saturday Night Live is often populated by people that started with an improv career in Chicago. Uh, we've sort of borrowed some of the techniques, and we've had some people go down to St. Louis and do training at the improv shop down there to learn how to do things even beyond what you'd see on Whose Line Is It Anyway, which is the improv that most people are familiar with.
Yeah.
We call that short form. They're very quick scenes. They're very jokey. They're high energy. But you come out, you do a game, and then it's over. And then you do another game that may not relate to that initial game. So now we're working on some things that are a little more complex, and that's what our next show is going to be all about as well.
Right, your next show, and you were sort of telling me a little bit about this, and talked a bit about it, just right there. A more long form sort of comedy and improv comedy. This show, which is coming up next month, tell us a little bit about it and what this long form method is all about, and what people can expect.
So we're going to do a long form style or piece called an Armando. So we're calling the show an evening with Armando. And
Okay.
in long form, you can do lots of different styles. There, some people may be familiar with a form called the Herald, which has been around since the late '60s, early '70s. The form that we're doing, though, in particular, was developed by a Chicago improviser named Armando Diaz. And what happens is our improvisers come out onto the stage. They're going to ask the audience for one word, a one word suggestion. And based on that one word, one of the improvisers, and it's not pre planned as to who's going to do it, they're going to step forward and tell a story from their life. And then based on that story, our improvisers are going to start creating scenes uh, that will eventually be put together and be a completely improvised play. So this may
Okay.
last 20 to 45 minutes, just depending on how the scenes go. But it's really kind of special to get one word from an audience member and form an entire piece from that. So we're going to take that idea, we're going to explode it out, explore it through these scenes. The scenes end up being very funny. We've been working on them. You will laugh out loud seeing the scenes that get put together. And then occasionally you'll have times where characters from those scenes show back up again, or they'll connect in unexpected ways. And that's really the true magic of the improv is nobody's expecting it, even the people on the stage that are making it up.
Yeah, and with that long form and characters coming back, you really could, in a night of improv, make a completely original piece that is just, it's a story that, that's amazing. I mean, that's super
And
cool.
the even more than that is that's the only time it will exist.
That's right.
So we tell our audience that this show is for them in that moment only. It won't exist. If we tried to come out the next day and do it again, we couldn't because it would come out a different way.
Yeah.
So there's not a lot of theater that works that way. That's why we encourage people to come out and check out the show because once it's done, you'll never see anything like it again, and you get to be a part of the moment.
Yeah, and that's always something that's cool about improv. You see that it's like, um, this show, if it's like a 2 or 3 show weekend, it's like these are all gonna be completely different shows. I mean, it's the same
Absolutely.
cast, but you'll get a different experience each time, and that's the draw of, improv comedy. I mean, really, I think so. That is one of the big draws, you never know what you're gonna get, and you'll laugh along the way.
Yeah, and I people will sometimes say that's impossible. You can't do that. You are pre-planning these things, we promise you it's not too.
No.
So something like an Armando's a lot more challenging because you have to uh, work with everyone on stage. You have to create scenes, end scenes, move from scene to scene, remember what happened in the past. And there's no break. There's no host that's going to say, great, let's move on to the next game. It's all going to just come from the improvisers. It's a challenge. Our improvisers are up to that challenge though too, and it's going to be amazing. So we hope people come and check that out.
Very
We've got a couple
good.
of other surprises planned for the show too.
Ooh, that's gonna be fun. I'm sure we don't wanna spoil all of them. You'll have to come see the show, but the show is coming up. I believe you said it's June 4th
Yep, that's
is when the
correct.
show is.
Yep, Saturday,
Where
June
can
4th.
people see
8
it? And
p.m. at the Hoagland Center for the Arts. Tickets can be purchased from the Hoagland box office, which is hcfta.org/tickets. And our tickets are some of the cheapest in town too. It's $15. Uh, at this particular show too, we're doing a special giveaway. So for people that
okay.
attend the show, you'll be entered into a chance to win 2 tickets to Second City's show that's coming to the Hoagland on June the 18th. So the Second City has a touring company. They go out and they do improv throughout the country. We're very fortunate to get that show to come to Springfield, Illinois.
Right.
These seats are great. They were a birthday present, and I'm not able to use them, so we're giving them to our audience. That's like a $64 value there if you
Yeah.
win those tickets too. So you could get a 2 for 1 by checking out our Armando show.
That's right, absolutely. Chance to win those tickets and still a chance to see this wonderful improv group that you guys are putting on this show that I'm sure is going to be hilarious and very interesting to see the Armando method, which I have not. I maybe have seen somebody do it, but I mean, you explaining it to me, maybe I have, but I'm learning about it and it's very fascinating. So that'll
Great.
be
Yeah,
cool
we
to
hope
see.
we don't think most people would be familiar with this, which is why we want to explain a little bit of what people can see. That'll be the first form. We've got a couple of other forms picked out for that night too that will kind of remain surprises. But if people follow us on Facebook, we'll be leaking more information about those as well.
Okay, very good. Follow you guys on Facebook. And Facebook is just Capital City Improv, right?
You've got it. Yep.
Okay. Wonderful. Eric, thank you so much for joining me, reaching out to me. Um, everybody break a leg this coming month. I'm sure it's going to be hilarious.
Thank you, Kevin. Thanks a lot.
You're welcome. Thank you.